In the last episode about the ball, I mentioned how we can use the ball as a basis for our improvisation work. Improvisation work is a fundamental part of our work, and it's greatly misunderstood. Chekhov talked about improvisation and ensemble, he linked the two together, as a means to an end. And what is that end? To connect to that higher creative part of ourselves, which in the numbering system I call number 5. So in fact we could say we're onto another pillar now, and within that pillar there's many aspects. I would like to call that pillar, and I've just thought of this, beyond ourselves, or going beyond ourselves, connecting into a principle and not just connecting into past experiences out of ourselves. So within that pillar, and it's very interesting, if it's a pillar, it must support something. Here we're talking about 5 pillars, the 5 pillars of acting freedom. And what do pillars do? They support something. They support a dome or a roof. And what is that roof in the aspect of the pillars of acting freedom? All the pillars support the overarching view, the overarching work of acting as art. Acting that enables us to connect into something other than just the everyday. So that roof, that dome that the 5 pillars support, those pillars support this overarching view of what acting is. So let's look at improvisation, shall we? I said it's a means to an end, and the ball exercise really enables us to get to the fundamentals, not just winging it. I notice that the extrovert type loves improvising because they're extrovert and they love inventing and improvising and acting and experiencing themselves. The introvert type, and it's interesting for actors, they're not just extroverts, nor are they only introverts. The introvert type hates improvising because they have to bring something out of themselves. But when we work with improvisation from a Chekhovian point of view, we're connecting to principles, not just things out of ourselves. We can think quickly, we can invent quickly, we're spontaneous. It doesn't mean that at all, improvisation of the Chekhov work. What does it mean? It means that we connect to the principles. And what are the principles to allow us for something to drop in unexpectedly? We're not prepared for it, but we're open enough, we don't panic, most important, for something to come into us. That's what the improvisation work is about. It's a whole series of exercises I've developed for that. It also relates directly to text work. There's a wonderful exercise in Chekhov's book, the original To the Actor, exercise 12 it is, where he says you start with a phrase or sentence and then you finish it with a phrase or sentence. So you have 2 pillars. And the improvisation, the freedom of improvisation, must be between these limitations. The first sentence may be, it's a very windy day today. The last sentence has to be very different from that first sentence. It could be, I love swimming in the ocean. So it's a very windy day today, I love swimming in the ocean, and you improvise all the way through. What does that allow us to experience? The fact that we've got to get from A, the beginning, to B, the end. And in the middle is the middle bit, that dynamic that leads I call it sort of artistic sequence or artistic logic that allows us to build up within ourselves doing these exercises. It's a bit similar to the Demidov etudes, because what that allows us to do, the Demidov stuff and the Chekhov work as well, improvising, is to develop a backstory that just drops into us. So we begin to experience immediately an artistic basis, a dynamic, and it just comes in and informs you very, very deeply, so that in those first exercises that we do with exercise 12, you begin to notice the dynamic. Then you can get a text, a scene for example, and you start with the first line. If it's a classic text like a Shakespeare, you put it into modern language. And then you take the last sentence of that scene, and again you put it into modern language, and you improvise from the beginning to the end, from the first point to the last point, and something builds within you, something drops in. Why does Chekhov relate it to ensemble? Because it's a social exercise. You have to, particularly when you do the exercise 12, beginning and end, with another person, you have to really listen to them. You have to give them something, that's where the ball comes in, and you have to receive something as well. And from that, something is built, something is grown, which is you begin to experience the basic dynamic, the basic meaning, the basic sequence, not intellectually, through improvising. That's just one aspect of the improvisation work, and it leads directly into ensemble. And then when you're working together in ensemble, it's amazing what drops in that you both experience. You begin to play with each other, improvise, but within those limitations of the text. Improvising simply just doesn't mean you go with any impulse that comes. You've got to listen to your partner, they've got to listen to you, and from that you begin to experience something non-intellectual, non-conceptual about that scene. It's related directly to text work, to pillar number 5. In fact, as I keep saying, it's all connected. It's holistic.